2.5 months during tax season, that's all you're focused on. So it's 2 steps forward with trying to build the accounting and bookkeeping business, 3 steps backward during tax season, then a couple steps forward the rest of the year, then another 3 steps back during extension season. So realizing now the tax practice was a good tool to put food on the table and put some kids through education, I should have sooner gotten rid of the tax practice and focused on just what I really wanted to do. And that is working with the small business owners on the accounting and advisory side.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest is a CPA and distinguished expert in restaurant financial management, bringing over 3 decades of specialized experience to the industry. Tim Sernett, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. I'm really happy to be here and look forward to it.
Yeah, great to have you, and thanks for being on the show. Tim, it sounds like you've had a very focused career on a particular industry, and I'd love for you to share your career journey leading up to this point.
Okay. So I graduated with an accounting degree, became a CPA with a firm out in San Francisco Bay Area called Hood & Strong. After about 4 or 5 years, I realized that audit was not where I wanted to be, and went actually back to my family business, my father's business, which is a retail business in Iowa. He had about 7 stores in small towns in Iowa in the county seats. After about 2 years, figured out that wasn't for me either. Mm-hmm. At that point, we moved to Kansas City, where my wife is from, and I started my own firm. Probably a little too early to start your own firm, but I did it anyway. And at that point, the focus was small business. Because of my background growing up in a business owner environment and raised by a business owner, that's who I wanted to focus on, was helping small business owners. And of course, at the beginning, it involved everything from tax to compilation type bookkeeping. And then over time, we sort of transitioned to fully outsourced bookkeeping and accounting for small business owners. And sort of on the cutting edge with that, and probably a little bit too early to that as well. We were one of the first users with Bright Networks. And this is, 12, 13, 14 years ago, and tried to do outsourced bookkeeping all online and went through a lot of hiccups and a lot of struggles with technology. Like I said, we were probably a little bit too early. And I was doing both, still doing the tax side of my practice at that time. So we were doing tax and bookkeeping. Fast forward to about 3 years ago, got tired of the struggle of trying to grow Financial Optics, which at the time was virtual bean counters. That was a separate business from Timothy L. Sernett CPA, which was all my tax focus, and decided to sell my tax practice so I could focus 100% on Financial Optics. And at that time, well, your introduction said I do have 3 decades of experience with restaurants. I didn't make the move to focus on that niche until just about 2.5, 3 years ago.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So that's where we're at.
Very cool. A couple of questions. I mean, I'm just curious what you grew up with an entrepreneur, you went to school, got an accounting degree, came back, worked in the business. What was that like? When you were working for your father in his businesses, did you find that was it challenging working with your family? I'm always curious on those sides.
Yeah. So I'm number 4 of 5 boys.
Wow. Big family.
which is a whole nother story.
5 boys. Oh, boy.
Yeah, and we're all big guys, and my mom, she ran a restaurant out of her own kitchen, just feeding us.
Yeah.
I don't know, but when I came back, my oldest brother had already been back in the business for about 10 years, and he was more or less the CEO. My dad had not let go, more than about half of his time was still in the business. So it was sort of like I went to work for my older brother, not necessarily my dad.
Right.
So I didn't have that father-son in the same business experience as intently as my brother did. And he was very sympathetic to that type of situation where somebody coming back to the family business, and he was very welcoming. And the one thing he did insist on was that I have experience in all areas of the business, even though my forte was obviously accounting and that side of it. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it's another layer, another interesting layer.
Right.
A big family. Did all sons go and work in the business? Was this part of the,
They did
geez, or
not. They
no?
did not. We all worked in the business growing up. Didn't have a
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah.
There was no choice. And did every single job under the roof in that business. By the time I finally left and started my own accounting firm, but no, by choice, coming back to the business, it was just two of us.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting stuff. And so now I'm sure that's played out in your life. You say too early, but yet you had a lot of experience in business, family business, before you even went to university.
Right. Yeah. And that impacted my decision. At the time, I realized the family business wasn't a great fit for me. I knew I wanted to run my own show.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say too early was I probably didn't have enough experience in the realm of all facets of managing an accounting firm.
Right.
So, learn by experience.
Yes, it's hard to not learn by experience in
Right.
this lifetime, right? So you've mentioned a couple that we'll get to, the right networks. I want to talk about that. But any other mistakes that you made when you were starting that business that you would have done differently, or looking back, what worked, what didn't work for you?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing I would have done differently is I would have sold my tax practice sooner
Mm.
and focused on the outsourced accounting and bookkeeping and advisory sooner. Because as I'm sure much of your audience knows, you get on that tax season treadmill. Did I say that right? Treadmill.
It's a Freudian slip. Treadmill is like the treadmill, but you have to have your will in place before you start it.
Treadmill.
It's the treadmill with your will in place.
Right. So for 2.5 months during tax season, that's all you're focused on. And then, so it's 2 steps forward with trying to build the accounting and bookkeeping business, 3 steps backward during tax season, then a couple steps forward the rest of the year, then another 3 steps back during extension season. So realizing now that the tax season, the tax practice was a good tool to put food on the table and put some kids through education, I should have sooner gotten rid of the tax practice and focused on just what I really wanted to do. And that is working with the small business owners on the accounting and advisory side.
Yeah, so very, very good. And thanks for bringing that up. It's like any kind of focus in any business. If you're, especially with something that takes up that much time and is a repetitive, like you say, treadmill, is for sure hard to get the other things done in the business that you really, really want to grow. So it's a bit of a golden handcuffs, if you will. Now, you then decided to do something virtual. What had you take that route? Because you're like 15 years ago, you were definitely ahead of the time.
Mm-hmm.
When people were saying, "Oh, we're never going to be," I don't trust the internet. I don't, you were actually going and trying to build out a virtual practice.
Yeah, I think it was, I love technology. So I'm always, even today, I'm taking a course right now on AI and even considering getting an AI certification. So I've always loved technology. And the bottleneck back in the day of exchanging envelopes of documents and, trying to suffer some of the same struggles trying to get your clients to upload documents, but just trying to get your clients to get all the documents together and the logistical nightmare of exchanging paper. And as soon as I realized there was a way to eliminate that from the process and go virtual, I took advantage of it. I always want to try and stay a couple steps ahead of the technology and be an early adopter if it makes sense to improve whatever it is you're doing.
Hmm. And then that makes totally clear, and I could see where you would be and the frustrations that you would have, and i- you went with Right Networks, and then that led you down a different path. There was probably some good learnings there.
Yeah, yeah. Right Networks was one of the only choices back then. Yeah, the biggest takeaway for me was in client selection, in understanding the psychographics of your clients, and are they willing to adopt the technology as well? Because they have to be willing to utilize a scanner, upload documents, and that was a big deal 15 years ago. And if they don't have the right mindset and the right willingness to adopt the technology, it's just not going to work. That's all there is to it. And there were early struggles with connectivity, our clients getting frustrated with trying to log on to Right Networks and they couldn't get into their QuickBooks data file. We had the same frustrations. So there was a lot of hurdles with the technology when you're an early adopter. And it just helped me focus on who do you want to work with and what is the right, not just demographics, but psychographics for the clients you want to work with.
Yeah, for sure, and that literally would have set you up well for dealing with those conversations when technology improved. Looking
Right.
back and sort of where you're at today, what do you see as being like? There's been a lot of improvement, obviously, but where do you see the big gaps right now for you personally in your business?
From a technology standpoint,
Yeah, from
yeah.
technology.
Yeah, I think the biggest gap is that there's still a challenge of getting your clients to adopt technology that you would like them to use, communicate with you. Um, and to me, one of the biggest gaps is, and maybe I'm just not finding the right tool, a dashboard that is at their fingertips on their phone or on their computer screen that they can quickly log into and see what's going on.
Hmm.
Uh, they're out there, but it's hard to get your clients to adopt that. Pick up the phone, click on the button, and here's what's going on in my business.
Right.
For whatever reason, that's a tough one for me to get them to adopt that. And I've had trouble finding the right dashboard tool to do that.
Right. And
Uh,
that's part of the humans. They haven't upgraded as much as technology in the last couple of years.
right. And the technology is all great, and it there's a lot of utilizations that help you with efficiency, but your clients still have to adopt the technology. And sometimes one of the challenges is still getting them to scan and upload documents or just take a darn picture of the document and get it up on, where we can use it in what we need to do.
Yeah, for sure. And not the first time I've heard that. It
Right.
is one of those challenges is getting people to change behaviors. As much as the technology has gotten so much easier, and yet their world is very different than your world, and that's part of it, right? And
Right.
so the search continues to improve that.
Right.
Now,
And
go ahead.
let me just add to that. The other biggest learning is that 15 years ago, I was a little bit younger and I was more eager to adopt technology and be on the bleeding edge. Um, I'm not that eager anymore because I want to make sure the technology actually works. We've had some rough experiences with trying to adopt automation when it was my fault. I didn't vet it out well enough to see that the automation actually works. That what OCR scanning, 5 years ago, I thought that was the answer to everything. Well, maybe 7 years ago. OCR scanning wasn't even close to what it is today, and it's still not perfect. But the early adoption, I've backed off a little bit on that, and I spend more time vetting technology before we implement.
Yeah, that. I appreciate that myself because we use lots of different apps and tools, and just the vetting process in itself is huge. And there's, what I found in all of the apps, there's no one solution that fits it all, right? There seems to
Right.
be always a blind spot on the vendor's part on, if it could just do that, right? And if you put a few of those into one piece of technology, and it really hampers the efficiency that the promises that have been made. So, it's feedback to the vendors, and eventually they improve it. And but getting back to that core problem is the human. It's hard to have the human abide by the technology, and if it's not just so simple, like big fat crayon simple, then there's a big chunk of that population that just won't use it. And if there's any issue or any learning curve, it just becomes like, well, I'm not going to use that because it just doesn't work. And yet it was just a little hurdle. So yeah, that's like whether you're an early adopter of technology or you're not, that's going to come back to your clients. Some of them are not adopters and some are. And that's the challenge that we all have.
Right. And there's only so many times you can ask them to utilize this technology, and it doesn't work right, and it crashes, and it causes them time and effort that they start to, the next time you ask them to adopt something, they might be, hey, listen, buddy, last time you asked me to do this, it didn't work. Are you sure about this one? You can only go back to the well so many times.
You got it. It's the first impressions count.
Right.
And sometimes people have a very good memory. We develop software ourselves, and developing software, there's just nothing but bugs, right? You develop something, you improve it. It's just part of the game. Some people don't dig the bugs, and that's that. But that's the journey that the technology folks take, and you have taken, and you've an expert in knowing when things don't work, and likely they won't. First off,
right.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit about the niche. So you said you made some changes. You sold the practice. You would have done that earlier.
Tax practice.
Tax practice. You then said you then went into the niche of the restaurant industry, or serving industry, is for restaurants and serving. Tell us a little bit about how that came to be.
The whole idea of niching, has been pounded into my head for quite a few years. There's riches in the niches, and you need to niche. And if you're a boutique firm, you can't serve everybody. And I finally got that. And when I sold my tax practice and realized, I'm no spring chicken, I'm 61, but I have no design on retirement. And I want to spend at least the next 10 years of my life growing financial optics. And I finally said, okay, if everybody says niching is the way to do it, that's what I'm going to do. At the time, we were serving at least 10 different industries. So which one do I pick? And I just kind of talked to my team. I've got a small team. Who do you guys like working with? I thought about who I liked working with. I thought about what our values are. And it all just kind of came back to the independent restaurant owner niche.
And thank you for using niche. I mean, it's, the sayings don't work as well with niche. The riches are in the niche. The riches are in the niche, right?
Right.
The niches. And we're very clear. Yeah, we're very clear in the United States, it's niche. But up here in Canada, we call it niche. But you adapted to that quite nicely. So thank you. I do appreciate it.
I probably use both enunciations interchangeably.
Yeah, well, niche sounds like quiche. So if it's near lunch, you kind of get hungry. So it's been 3 years. What's it been like have you seen a difference in the way you run your business? What are some of the learnings?
Yes, 100%. Difference in the way we run our business. Our entire workflow, there's so many things that you can start to specialize in. We looked at our workflow and how does our workflow best fit restaurants? Where I spend my time when I'm not actually working on a client, and where I spend my time in research, in watching podcasts, in YouTube, it's all 100% focused on restaurants. I've learned so much about the restaurant industry in 2.5 years that the prior 15 years of working or more working with restaurants, I never knew, because you can't spend your time focusing on one industry if you're trying to serve 10. So it's the process of becoming the expert in that industry and becoming very comfortable with what are the right metrics, what should they be measuring, what are the levers to pull to improve the metrics, how do you advise them, and how do you educate them on this is how you understand the finances of your business. It's just focus is the biggest difference. And it's fun when you can focus on one industry and start to become an expert and feel like you know as much as there is to know about that industry, but next week you're going to learn something new because that's where you're focused.
Wow. It really is. It's such a neat conversation because we've had all sorts. But I think, the fact that, you worked for a very long time with many different types of businesses, and then you had to pick, you chose to pick, where many will sort of fall into it. It's like the niche finds them, but you kind of looked at it a little bit differently and then really embraced that opportunity to become an expert, because that's the point, right? Is like, you have the time and you can become an expert in the industry, and you've really leaned into that.
Right. Right. Exactly. And when we made the switch to focusing on the niche, it wasn't that we've got rid of all of our clients and fired all of our clients except for our restaurant clients. It was simply that I made a decision that the only clients we're going to onboard are the ideal clients that fit the restaurant niche. And all the marketing, all the website, all the marketing efforts are focused on just that niche. And all the growth is going to be on just that niche. We'll probably always have some legacy clients that we'll work with, but it's a transition process. It's not an all
For
or
sure.
nothing
For
decision.
sure. You didn't go out and fire all your general industry
Right.
bit clients. You just realigned your focus onto those. And yeah, many businesses, they're happy with I'm sure happy with it. And it's really just where you're putting your focus, which is the key thing. You can become an expert. Your marketing message can be very clear, and you know where to find them. That's always tough in business. If you're going after everyone, how do you find those people? How do you speak to them? How do you deliver the value that you have for them when you're speaking to an unknown person, right? Or business.
Right. Right.
So now with this industry now and your team, how has your team experienced it? They like dealing with this industry initially, but now that you've really put that focus in, has everyone been happy with that move in your team?
Yeah, the same excitement you hear about from my boys about focusing on the niche and learning and really feeling like you're becoming an expert and honing down the workflow process and understanding exactly what restaurant owners need to know and getting used to what most of them don't know and how to educate them on what they do need to know about the finances of their business. It's just that focus and that excitement of learning and becoming an expert. They've enjoyed that in the same way that I have.
Very cool. And then what about your clients? You've focused, now you've got the focus. What have you seen with their experience? And of course the clients in that niche. What have they experienced from you? Have you noticed a difference for how they relate to you, or benefits that they're getting from you making this choice?
Um, well, with new clients, they feel that. sense of your own confidence in understanding their business and understanding the financial side of their business and really understanding what are the key metrics, what do they need to focus their attention on, how do they improve the metrics. They feel that level of expertise and that desire to serve that industry. I think that's the biggest difference is they feel that right off the bat.
Mm, that's exciting. And I would think in independent restaurants, so you're not working with big restaurant chains. You're working with what, the ones and twos outlet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And that just kind of comes from my value of who we want to serve. I've always wanted to serve small business owners. And when we decided, part of what made sense of transitioning to restaurants is, in my mind, they're one of the hardest working small business owners out there, restaurant owners. And they're probably working too many hours. But I wanted to serve that group of people, not franchisee owners, not, the 12 location restaurant group. At that level, they probably have their own internal controller anyway. I wanted to serve the mom and pop's not the right term, but the small business owner that a lot of them know there's more they need to understand about the finances. They just don't know how to go about doing it. And they welcome an expert in that area.
Great.
So, but there's also a lot of them that don't know what they don't know. And they're focused on putting food out and marketing. And it's not until they get in trouble with the money that they want to know more about the finances.
Oh, yes. The good old learnings of life.
Right.
Some have to fail before they can value something or whatnot. And nothing we can do about that. People do have to learn. We do our best to help them.
Right.
But in every industry, there is that component. You don't know what you don't know. And that's the biggest dangerous and exciting part of all of it, right? I have a great story about a person that I know who fell into the ownership of a restaurant in a way, but basically the turnaround for her, the big breakthrough was a bookkeeper that worked with her who worked with only restaurants and literally came to her and said, look, here's all the metrics that you need to be looking at. And she had never thought of it that way before. And it financially changed the game for her. And now she's one of those, has restaurants in multi-country and, multi-city,
Right.
multi-country scenarios and, thousands of staff members, like just amazing, right?
Right.
From just being one owner with one restaurant to multiple and thousands of staff members because of the tight financial control that was established very early on with that one bookkeeper. So she didn't know what she didn't know, but she was a keen learner and wanted freedom, right? So a best way to get freedom is to have a financial strong business that doesn't need your day to day, and you can run off the metrics, right?
Correct. Yes, strong financials and strong processes and procedures in place to hold your team accountable so that they're running the restaurant the way you want the restaurant run.
Yes, and that's what you can bring to the table for them, which is highly valuable if they are open to seeing that and learning that and all that good stuff. But that's lovely because there's just far too many restaurants. You hear it, it's like, oh, I'm starting a restaurant. Everybody would say, what are you doing? Like that is one of the highest failure rates of businesses fail high rate of failure of any business, but restaurants, it probably comes up on some top 10 list or top 5 list for sure.
It does. And in fact, I got that same reaction from a lot of people when I said we are going to niche into the independently owned restaurant. And they're like, what are you doing? They all fail. How are you going to help these people? And the key is finding the ones that they want the help in a core part of their business that they know they're not an expert in.
Right.
So yeah,
right.
And there's a lot of saving to be done out there. Not that we're saviors, but we're saviors in the fact that we help them understand the money before they get to a point where there is no cash.
there's no way out of that. It's just kind of like there's nothing that can be done. And that's exciting. And I love that you're passionate about it, because there are a lot that need shepherding, let's say, to a better place. And it's one of those industries that there's a lot at stake. Like, there's a lot of money moving around, and there's a lot of risk. And so I would say that if a restaurateur had they're great at cooking and delivering great service. Like, it's like the food's got to be good, the service got to be good, and the marketing, right? If you've got those three, if they can deliver on those three, and they add to that mix, then you've got something really powerful going, right? If they're failing on their end, one of those three, that's on them, right? But from the financial perspective, nobody gets out without having that solid.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's something that they need to get. Like, no amount of good marketing solves bad food, and no amount of marketing, service, and food saves you forever from not paying attention to the finances.
Correct. And there's the proof of the pudding is there's a statistic out there that I've come across several times. So there must be validity to it if it's out there with several of the restaurant associations, and I've seen it several times, is that most independently owned restaurants, their bottom line net profit is anywhere from 3 to 6% or worse. The big boys, the chains, shoot for 20% on all their locations. That gap is where we can help. And if we can improve their bottom line just 5 percentage points over the course of a year, that's a huge hit to the bottom line.
Massive.
So that's what we strive for. And with knowledge and processes and procedures, and knowing what levers to pull to improve the bottom line, independent restaurateurs can get there. They do not have to live with a 3% bottom line.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And I love that you're someone that can help them make that happen. That's exciting. This has been such a delightful conversation of hearing your backstory and where you've ended up. I'd love if people wanted to learn more, if people wanted to, refer their friends and family that are restaurateurs or potential clients, because some people are, they're niching or niching into some other industry and they don't want those clients. What would be the best way for them to learn more about you or get in touch with you?
Just the social media and our website. It's Financial Optics Inc. And the website's actually financialopticshq.com. I'm on LinkedIn as Tim Sernett. We also have a business page on LinkedIn, but Tim Sernett on LinkedIn, Facebook, same. I'm easy enough to find. I'm out there.
Very cool. Well, we'll put all of those notes or links into the notes for our listener to get. And Tim, this has been just great to learn from you, and really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing what you know.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate what you're doing for the industry.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I have a lot of fun doing it. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. And until next time, we'll say goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.